Now that we have a selectable player character, it's time to add another one. It wouldn't be a very useful system if there was only one player character to select in the first place. We're going to notice that creating a new player character is very similar to how we created new enemies in a previous chapter. All we really need to do is duplicate this player character and swap out some graphics and animation detail. The rest of it is set up to automatically work. The first thing I'm going to do is place the boy player character in a new spot so when the player selection screen is finalized, everything will line up and be nice and neat. Right now, our boy player character is at the origin. All I'm going to do is change the X position of the boy player character to be -3. Before I duplicate the boy player character and turn it into the girl player character, I want to make sure all changes I've made to this player are finalized and saved in its prefab. So I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. Now that I'm sure the current state of this boy player character is saved in the prefab file, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. I could drag in a new instance of the prefab, or I could simply right-click on the boy game object in the hierarchy and select Duplicate. I'm going to move this new game object to +3 on the x-axis. I'm also going to rename it Girl. Now that I have this new game object, I need to swap out the graphics. I'm going to go to the Models folder, and then the Character subfolder, and I'm going to locate the Girl model. The girl.fbx model should have been imported and checked in a previous step. All of the animation should have been isolated, and it should already be good to go. However, it can't hurt to take a quick look and make sure everything is set up the way we want. Ideally, since the girl model is based very heavily on the boy model, most of the import settings should be exactly the same. We're just going to make sure the model and the rig are set up, and the animations have already been identified and saved. We should have 3 clips: move, idle, and death. Additionally, we need to ensure that the death animation has the appropriate event assigned to it. We can see this by selecting the death animation and expanding the Events section. There should be an event near the end of the death animation that should call a function death complete. If you are missing any part of these import settings, you can either check the assets for this chapter for a completed version, or you can go back to the chapter on animations and see how these were identified and created. Once I'm satisfied with the import settings of the girl.fbx file, I'm going to go ahead and click and drag an instance into my scene. If we expand this new girl model and the girl game object that is a duplicate of the original boy player character, we can see the graphical insides. Namely, the girl player character still has these child game objects that are graphics from the boy. At this point, we don't really want those, so we can go ahead and delete them. It's going to ask if we want to break the prefab instance, and we do. We'll notice that I did not delete the antenna or any of the objects as children of the antenna, because those are all of the various attacks and we want to leave them there. We only want to remove the graphical parts of the boy model. Now, instead of trying to drag and align the different child game objects of the girl model, let's go ahead and nest the entire girl model underneath this new girl player. What this allows me to do is it allows me to reset the transform of this girl 1 so that it is centered on the girl player. Now that it's all lined up, all I need to do is select the 3 child objects of that girl model, namely girl control, player 2, and RC2. I'm going to click and drag those onto the girl player. Again, I want to break the prefab instance. I now have this leftover girl model parent game object that I don't need anymore, so I'm going to delete it. I now have a girl player with all of the girl graphics associated with it. The last thing I need to change for it is the animations. I will notice it's still pointing at the boy animator controller and the boy avatar. I'm going to click the circle selector next to the avatar, and I'm going to choose the girl avatar. Also, I'm going to click the circle selector next to the controller, and I'm going to choose the girl animator controller. You'll recall creating the girl animator controller at the same time you created the boy animator controller in a previous chapter. To prevent any animator issues from changing the girl avatar and the girl animator controller, I'm simply going to right-click on the animator and select Reset. If you're curious why I did that, feel free to go back to the chapter where we created the enemies. Specifically, pay attention to the zombie duck section, and you'll see what kind of issues can arise from swapping out an animator like this. Now that the girl is complete, it's time to turn it into a new prefab. I'm going to go to the prefabs folder, and then the characters subfolder. I'm going to click and drag the girl parent game object from the hierarchy to the project window. We now have a boy player game object and a girl player object. Both of these objects have all of the scripts associated with movement, attacking, and health, and the player selection script. They're both fully capable of being a player in every way that we've seen so far in this project. The very last step to complete this section is to tell the boy and the girl game objects about each other, because when I select one, the other one needs to be disabled. Doing so is simple. I'm going to start by selecting the girl game object, and I'm going to scroll down to the player select script. I'm going to pay attention to the section called Player to Disable, namely the property Other Character. This is where I tell the girl what the boy character is so it can be disabled when I choose the girl. I'm simply going to click and drag the boy from the hierarchy down to that property. So now the girl points at the boy as the other character. I'm going to do the same for the boy, this time clicking and dragging the girl to the other character property. Now the boy points to the girl as the other character. Now let's try this out. I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and I'm going to select the boy. I should see the girl fall over and disappear, and the boy should be controllable. Let's try it again, this time selecting the girl. The boy now falls over, and the girl is playable. The camera still doesn't follow the boy or the girl when we select them. In the next section, we're going to finalize the camera and set it up so that it animates and follows the selected player.